Hi, friends. I'm Zach.
I'm Mitch.
And this is an excellent little podcast.
Starring Zach and Mitch.
Wait, we're doing a podcast?
What have I told you the past couple times we've done this, even though this is only the second time?
Oh, well, I guess we're just going to have to start getting used to this.
Yeah, we're just going to have to keep doing this all the time.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
I can only imagine.
Well, this is going to be our first review.
And it's Scream 2022.
Wait, what about the 355?
No, we're not talking about the 355.
Oh, yeah, we don't talk about it.
That was the movie that never ended.
Oh, no. We were going to do it as our first review.
But we saw it.
And it didn't end. It still hasn't ended, I don't think.
We don't want to talk about it. Let's just put it that way.
We don't want to talk about it at all, which is why we're going to go ahead and talk about...
Scream!
That's a scream.
That was his scream, and it was actually kind of scary.
Yeah, that can be a horror film in itself.
And also, we are reviewing the 2022
yes,
version.
Scream 2022, not Scream 1996, but we'll talk a little bit about that later.
Because there's a few callbacks to it.
That there are. That being also said, we're going to go ahead and separate this into two parts. We're first going to do a non-spoiler side.
And then a spoiler side.
Yep, and we will go ahead and make sure we let you know when we are going to get to our spoiler side, so that way if you wish to end,
you can stop listening.
Yep.
You can stop listening to us be stupid.
Yes, but don't worry, we will go ahead and give our review of the movie right before we go into the spoiler side, so you can get a non-spoiler, see what we thought, then we'll give our rating, and then we'll jump into our actual spoiler ideas.
Well, Zach, you've been talking a lot, but I think these people want to hear our review.
I think so.
I think so, too. What do you think?
I think we can jump right on into it.
I agree. You know what? I enjoyed this movie.
Oh, it was freaking wonderful.
It was a good movie. I really enjoyed it.
I thought that it was such a wonderful change of pace to have a horror movie that is so much in the realm of Scream and was so much like the original Scream in 1996. I thought its pacing was phenomenal.
Yes.
There was never a dull moment in this movie, in my opinion.
Right.
It was always moving forward. It never stopped. All the intensity kept on going up and up and up. And every single time that I thought it was about to fall down, they would either introduce a new character or a new element to keep it fresh.
Well, and also one thing that I have to say is this movie, if you compare it to Scream 4, which was released in, was it 2010 or 2011?
I think it was 2010. No, I think you're right, 2011.
I think it was 2011. That Scream 4, in my opinion, felt like a 1990s, early 2000s movie shoved into 2011. What this movie brought to the table was, if Scream was set in 2020, 2021, 2022, this was the movie that we got.
Oh, yeah.
And that was so good for me because I wanted to see the kind of Scream, or in the Scream in the movie, the movie within the movie, the Stab
movies is what they called Scream movies in there.
That was something that I wanted to see. Like, what does a Scream movie look like in 2022? And what would happen if current elements of today's society, what would that look like in a Scream movie today?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And they nailed it.
They did. And specifically, who nailed it? The cast was actually really, really wonderful. They, as you saw in the trailers, they brought back some legacy cast.
Yes, very well done. Very well done.
They also had a new bunch, of course, in order to be our vehicle for this.
Yes.
Overall, I thought they did well. There were a few standouts that I definitely want to mention.
Yes.
The two sisters that the story mostly focuses around.
Their main focus was the two sisters.
Yes. It was Sam and Tara, played by... Sam was played by Melissa Barrera, and Tara was played by Jenna Ortega.
Jenna Ortega. Yeah, I couldn't remember the names off the top of my head. Thank you for getting that down.
Absolutely. My biggest standout, definitely, out of the two was Melissa Barrera.
Yes.
I thought she had this really wonderful vulnerability. I believed her backstory 100%. I thought what she went through and everything that she found out, I genuinely believe someone would react the way how they would.
Well, she also had a nice twist on the final girl. You know how a lot of the 1980s and 90s old horror films, they always had that last girl at the end that always like saved the day. They had a nice twist on this.
Yeah. And I really feel like she just carried the movie really well. She had a whole lot of charisma. She was able to play both the chaotic moments and the softer moments really, really well.
Well, a lot of the supporting cast too. The two kids that played who was do you remember Randy from the first two Screams?
Yeah.
Sadly, he the nerd. Mm-hmm. His niece and nephew, they nailed it.
Oh,
they were so good.
They were really good. It was
every time I was watching those two, it literally felt like I was watching myself because they were so nerdy about not just horror films, just movies in general.
Yeah, the niece was played by Jasmine Savoy Brown, who played as Mindy Meeks Martin, and Mason Gooding played Chad Meeks Martin.
Yes.
I thought they were also some pretty good standouts as well.
If some of you don't remember the character of the nerd from the first two, it was Randy Meeks, right? I think it was Randy Meeks, he was stellar. That was the disappointment that I did have, even though there was a nice callback to him. That I almost wanted another. I remember he showed up in like a videotape in Scream 3. I almost wanted a little bit of that, like a nail to the coffin, a nail to his coffin almost, because it would have been so cool to see like, oh, what would happen if this movie that you're making right now was made 20 years later?
And also, just to give a couple of notes on Jenna Ortega's performance as Tara, I thought she was a very good compliment and juxtaposition to Sam / Marissa.
Especially
Melissa.
for someone her age.
Yeah, they really do play up how Sam is very much older than Tara, and how she has a lot more life experience and has had a different experience than Tara, and they really play into that relationship of the absentee sister and her coming into her life again.
Yes.
It's really, really well done. Yeah. And how Tara was also introduced at the beginning of the movie was also really well done.
A nice callback to the first Scream.
And a very nice callback to the first Scream.
But let's talk about those legacy characters.
Yeah, the legacy characters. Really, really well used. We don't want to go into too much exactly how well they were used until we get to our spoilers.
If I may, I will say David Arquette as
Dewey. Oh
my
gosh.
Solid. Very, very well done. But David Arquette as Dewey finally became the character that a lot of people wanted him to be. Even though, in the first movie, he was that dork.
Oh, yeah.
He was that dork that everyone's like, is this guy really a cop? But he finally became that sheriff.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't the sheriff, he was sheriff in the fourth one.
Yeah.
He finally became that sheriff.
Yeah.
That people wanted to go to and people wanted to look up to and people wanted to go to in their time of need. And also he kind of had... Was it just me, or did he have kind of a Ben Kenobi vibe?
So actually, a little bit of a Ben Kenobi vibe.
He did, didn't he?
A little bit. There was another character that we would have to go into spoilers to talk about the more Ben Kenobi vibe. His performance, to be honest, specifically David Arquette as Dewey, felt so much like Harrison Ford coming to Han Solo in Episode 7.
So you felt like it was more of a Han Solo-y.
Well, kind of, yeah, as more of a Han Solo-y, and also just in the fact, when I saw Episode 7 and I saw that trailer and I saw the movie, like, that's not Harrison Ford. That is Han Solo.
That is Han Solo.
I felt the exact same way from the moment David Arquette showed up on the screen as Dewey. I was that is Dewey. That is 100% Dewey.
Well, again, it was finally the Dewey that I've been wanting to see for a while because I was kind of getting tired. I know the first two, he was still that dorky kind of kid that was obsessed with Gale Weathers, played by Courtney Cox. But this one, he finally became, even though he's still obsessed, he finally became that man that we've been wanting to see him become over the course of these 5 movies.
Yeah, and then I feel like we really should talk about really the meat and potatoes of what Scream is. Did it nail the satire?
I have to say yes.
Oh, 100%.
Yes.
It was filled to the brim with references to a whole bunch of different horror movies.
Psycho
was one of them that they went to.
Christine.
I don't really want to say what movies because that I feel like is a little bit spoilery. I don't want you guys looking for like, oh, this, but I will say
we're
that
not going to tell you exactly where they are.
Yeah, but I do want to say like they did a great job of alluding to a whole bunch of different movies, genres, directors, and tropes that is very, very reminiscent of not only old horror but new age or horror as well, which I thought was very, very interesting.
Yeah, I would have to agree. There was also a few callbacks to Wes Craven as well.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. Because one thing that this movie also had that was kind of a callback to Wes Craven. Wes Craven, when he was directing these movies and the first Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven was so good at making the audience think, like, what's real? What is it? Who is the killer? Who isn't a killer? Or in the case of Nightmare on Elm Street, is this a dream or is the person awake?
Yeah.
So that was something that the whole time I was watching this movie, I'm like, this, even though Wes Craven sadly passed away, this felt like a Wes Craven movie.
Yeah.
And which was phenomenal. It was great.
Yeah. All right. So those were some of our bigger highlights of the movie. We do still have a little bit of critiques of it. Yeah. Our first critique that we are going to have to bring up is while it was a really wonderful horror movie, it fell into the predictability realm. There were a whole lot of things that it was very predictable. There really weren't in terms of like jump scares or anything. Like you could kind of predict when Ghostface was gonna. Don't you dare!
We talk about time you jumped in the.
We'll save it for our spoiler, but I did jump once.
Yeah, he's still picking ceiling from the movie theater out of his hair, and we saw that about a week ago.
Nah, it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I think.
he still has splinters because he jumped that much.
It was one darn jump. That was it.
One thing that a lot of the Scream, especially the first Scream, the entire plot, for the most part, even though it was predictable, we did see a lot of the things coming. Yeah. It would always have a little twist. Yeah. Just that little, even though you kind of see it coming in the first one. Yeah. There's always that little turn of a twist. Yeah. That kind of gets you.
Exactly. And I feel like that's where that negative turns into a positive. Yes. Of like, even when it was getting predictable, those nice little twists were what was keeping it going.
I agree. It didn't need that big twist at the end.
Yeah, I didn't need that.
It just needed a little, like a U-turn, if that makes any sense. Like a quick story U-turn. Sure. To make people remember, like, okay, we're still making this movie. We're still making a Scream movie. We're not making just your prototypical horror film. Yeah. That a lot of people was probably wondering if that's what they were going to see.
Oh, and I totally forgot. There is one more positive that I think we really do need to bring up. This is going to be a little bit more on the spoiler trek, but we don't feel like it's a very plot critical, so we will go ahead and bring this up. The LGBTQ representation in this really was great.
Yeah, even though it was small.
It was very small, but it was really well done.
Yes, it was something that the horror genre needed, because in the recent horror films that I've seen, there hasn't really been a lot of that representation in these movies. I think you mentioned earlier that Candyman had it?
Candyman had a little bit of it. It was more so just ancillary. Okay. It was just on the side. Like with Candyman, they went to an art gallery, and that was when one of the first major like hits that the Candyman did in that movie. When his first like kill happens is at the art gallery.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
It takes place in an art gallery, so because a lot of artistic people are very more pro and conscious of that, there were a few more couples that you went, oh, that's nice. That's some nice.
But this one, they actually felt like, hey,
it was like they really did a
like
really
high school party. Like, hey, what are you doing later?
Hey, what are you doing later? Well, I'm gonna hook up with this chick. Yeah. Hey, and I thought it was really, really wonderful, and that's to me the best way to make LGBTQ plus representation great is just to treat it as normal human behavior, which it did, which I thought was really wonderful. And that was a huge plus. Once, like, me and Mitch both looked at each other and we went, yeah that's right.
And it was I don't want to say it was needed, But you could tell it was a lot of people in the audience, and our audience wasn't that full. It was empty for the most part.
It was pretty empty, and that was opening weekend, but it was a very late showing.
It was. But you could tell a lot of people in the audience were like, are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? Are they going to press the envelope a little bit? And they did.
They did.
Yes, and I felt they nailed it very, very
yes,
well.
It wasn't forced. It was really, really wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I think it opens the door to even more, not just like specifically in the Scream universe, but just as a whole into pop culture. I think it's a nice doorway step into more and better and bigger LGBTQ representation later down the line.
Well, I think we were done with the positives, but there was another negative that we wanted to discuss.
Oh, absolutely.
Can we talk about the acting performances of a certain legacy character that we
we can talk about that.
So Courtney Cox, who plays Gale Weathers.
And here's the thing. I love Courtney Cox. I love a lot of her work.
A lot of her recent work has been
It has a lot of been kind of wooden,
yes.
And this is no exception.
There were a few moments in the movie that I just felt that she could have played a little bit more.
Yeah. And
instead of just the prototypical, just standard wooden performance that she's been giving a lot lately. When I watched her performance, there were a few moments that I just wanted more.
And here's the thing: there were moments where you were like, "Yes, I completely believe it," and you saw her like light up. Her eyes would light up when she actually was getting that moment, and she was hitting those moments.
I agree.
But then it just made those times when her performance became wooden so much more noticeable
and worse
because you were like, you had it just a few moments ago, and now you're back down on the ground.
If there was a legacy character if I had to choose, if there was a legacy character that I didn't want to be in this movie, it had to have been Courtney Cox. I felt like this movie didn't really need her in the end.
So
to me, at least.
I think the initial concept, how they introduced her, and if she would have just stayed kind of how she was introduced. I will get a little bit more into it for spoilers' sake, but I feel like if they kept her as how she was introduced and they kept her as that way and her being kind of like cameos that way,
that would have been okay.
That would have been okay. I understand why the plot turned and brought her into it. I understand how and why. And there was one moment that would totally make sense. But again, it came down to Courtney Cox's performance and it just didn't work.
I also felt, even though her performance was well done, it's Neve Campbell. I hope I'm pronouncing her first name correctly.
Yeah, basically it's basically Sidney Prescott, Scream's main person.
Her performance was well done, but out of the legacy characters, I wanted to see more.
See, and that's where I actually disagree with you. What? I thought the amount of her character was correct. But I thought for her, it wasn't like her performance was wooden like Courtney Cox's was. But her acting was still a little bit more reserved than I would like.
See, to me, when I was watching her performance, I was watching an older, not actress, an older survivor of these attacks.
Sure, absolutely.
She was older. She was less naive. Because if you have to admit, in the first 4 films, she was incredibly naive.
Oh, 100%.
Incredibly naive. She had no idea what she was doing. Whereas this one, she's very seasoned, and she was ready. She was ready for every little thing. Well, there was a couple moments in the movie where she knew what was coming. She knew it was coming. And that was really, really cool to me. Because if you really think about it, over the course of 5 films, and with her being the final girl multiple times, she's going to know what's happening. She's going to know what's happening.
Definitely.
And I wanted to see more of that. I really did. And I know there's a few callbacks to her former portrayals, but I really wanted to see more of her because I enjoyed her performance. I did. I didn't think it was as wooden as what you say it is.
I don't think it was wooden. I just think that she was... reserved is the word I use reviews, and I will stand by that.
I am so sorry.
No, you're
I
okay.
thought it was wooden. He said it was reserved.
I really do think I agree with you on. I like that her character finally did step up and be seasoned. I just wish that there was a little bit more of her
heroic vibe,
maybe heroic vibe, or just more. She was very cautious yet firm. There was just kind of a mix.
You wanted more consistency.
I wanted a little bit more consistency there. And she would jump back between being like, I'm going to be this person who's here for you. And no, this is what we're going to do kind of thing. Yeah. And I wasn't a really big fan of that bouncing back and forth. But
the first thing that we've disagreed on, and it is the performance of Sidney Prescott.
Yeah, I know. Interesting, right?
I know. We've got a long couple reviews now, Zach.
That we do. But hey, now that we've talked about our positive and negatives, let's give it our score. Well, first, I think we should describe what our score system is even going to be for our reviews.
I have it written down. So basically what our review system is going to be, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories.
Yes.
We have horrible or wouldn't feed this to the wolves.
So that will reserve mostly for, we really probably won't use that a whole bunch. That's really for all the movies that we really are not fans of.
And we don't recommend them to seeing.
And we don't, like, there are some movies where you're like bad, but like if you want to see it, it's fine. We really just don't care for it. That one, number 5, we wouldn't feed it to our dogs, is just a way to say, like, no, I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. Like, it's not.
One thing I forgot to mention, this is subjective. This is our opinions. Now, our opinion may be different from yours. It may be the same as yours. We don't know. But you don't know unless you have our opinion first.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what is our next level up? Our number 4.
Bad. We have bad. And it is feed it to the wolves.
Yeah, feed it to the wolves. Yeah, so
it was going to be feed to the dogs.
It was going to be feed to the dogs, but we thought wolves was a little more visceral, which we love. And we really think that this is our bad one, is again just kind of it's bad. We really don't care for it, but if you want to watch it, you can, but we just didn't care for it. Now, what do we call our okay movies?
Our average is cook a little longer. Basically the kind of movie that it's okay, but it could have been better.
Yeah, if maybe 1 or 2 ingredients were changed.
Yeah, maybe like a script rewrite or something
maybe,
like that.
Or maybe a casting change.
A
or
reshoot
or 2. Things, if it would have had a little bit more different elements, it could have been a little better. And now our good is going to be...
Eat it up.
Eating it up. I always feel
that's gonna sound so weird.
It's always just gonna be a way, like I eat up things like major movies that I'm really a huge fan of. We eat up The Rock.
For those of you at home, take this with however you will.
Oh yeah. And then of course our pièce de résistance,
the great, or in very rare cases perfect movies, we have a clean plate.
Yeah, no, a clean plate is for those god tier movies.
No, Zach, I have a clean plate.
Oh, you have a clean plate.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I definitely don't have a clean slate.
Oh, you don't have a clean slate?
No, I've got a record, and you don't want to see it.
No, in all seriousness, a clean plate is the movie that we would recommend to anybody, whether they love movies, they hate movies. This is the movie that we would recommend for anybody and everybody to see.
And we're actually going to be, I think, reviewing a couple of clean plates pretty soon.
Let's wait till later.
We'll move on to that.
Don't rush things.
You're right. You know what? Let's not rush to that. But I do want to figure out what our rating for this one is. And one more thing before we get to this. The reason why we don't want to give a numeric system to this,
a little cliche maybe,
is not only a little cliche, but because we rather group it into groups than to give it a numeric system, because I don't want it. What a 7 to somebody is a 7 to somebody else.
Yeah.
A 7.5 3. Like they're just giving it a number is
numerical, yeah.
And it's weird to compare it that way.
Well, and a lot of reviewers have been doing like the 5 stars or 4 thumbs up or 2 thumbs up, and we wanted to do something unique,
something different, and something that fits us, and something that just won't be easily comparable to, because like I can eat up like a whole bunch of movies and they're eaten up for a whole different variety of reasons. Like I'm not going to compare a horror movie to a musical, but I can eat both up.
And I'm not going to compare a Fast and Furious movie to, I don't know what's a perfect movie like West Side Story.
No,
I'm not going to compare those two movies.
So like, why give those a number when we can give them a category?
Yeah,
and
give them a category.
And that's what we're doing. We're basically grouping them up into categories. So for Scream, Mitch, would you do the honors of giving our category for Scream 2022?
It is Eat It Up.
Eat It Up.
Yes, we can't really say too much else about this movie. It was very well done. The performances for the most part were well done. The pacing was really good. There were a few iffy moments in between, but for the most part, we would eat this movie up.
Oh, 100%. And I think that was predictable even from the start of this movie.
Wait, you predicted that?
Oh, 100%.
You looked at my notes again.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I looked at
You cheated. Yeah, you cheated last time and you looked at my notes.
I did not.
Yes, you did. You looked at my number 1 before. You jerk.
That's because you're not supposed to have your laptop on the whole time.
Well, that's my issue with having notes electronically. I'm sorry. Next time I'll turn my computer.
Sorry, I'm more old-fashioned. I'd like to write things down in notebooks. See?
All right, my friends. So that concludes our non-spoiler and score.
You mean we get to talk about spoilers now?
Now we get to jump into the juicy spoilers. All right, my friends. So, Mitch, what do you want to talk about first about Scream 2022?
Okay, I have to talk about the first scene.
Oh my God.
You jumped. I mean, okay. So
how did I know you were going to talk about this first?
I knew as soon as, because the movie started with the phone call. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, we both looked at each other because there's the landline. Right?
Yeah.
We both looked at each other like, who still has a landline in 2022? Well,
no,
I have
it's
to,
true.
So I have to say, I'm from Southern Illinois, and my parents still have a landline. And every time I go home and visit them, I'm like, why the heck do you still have a landline? And it's for reasons like this that just made me laugh. I'm like, who still has a landline?
But
oh my God.
I will say, like Mitch said, I did jump at one point in this film, that was during the first scene. Because I feel the introduction to Ghostface in this movie was so well done.
Yeah, superb.
And also, really great way to recap the original events of Stab/Scream 1996.
Right.
Basically, he did it in way of trivia. Now, they changed some names and some things in order to get it, but if you know Scream, then you know who they were actually alluding to and talking about. And they hit all the points of, like, this is what happened, these were the killers, and this is who walked away. Which was really, really great, just as a nice little recap, especially with how heavy-handed the Scream 1996 references were going to be in this movie.
Yeah, it was a really nice refresher. And it was a really nice... It was a really nice ending to that first scene because the person didn't die.
No, I was genuinely shocked, and we found out through phone call that they survived.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, like, we knew as soon as the victim. We're not. Do we?
Yeah, we can say it's spoilers.
It was
Tara.
It was a spoiler. It was Tara. It was the younger sister.
Yeah.
When she hit the floor and was getting stabbed. She's dead. She's dead.
This is the thing I will give about the new Ghostface. The dude must be the most accurate stabber of all time because he stabs so many people multiple times, but so many people walked away.
They didn't die.
I genuinely was like, how the fuck have you been stabbed multiple times? Like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times.
So you know this Ghostface the two ghost faces.
Spoiler, we'll get to who they were later, but yeah.
But there are two.
There are two in this one.
So that both of them knew where every single major artery, major vein were. Kind of like what they did in the first one.
Yeah.
Both Billy Loomis and Stu, I can't remember his last name,
yeah.
Stu, they both knew where every vein and artery was. That's a perfect, I just realized this, that's a perfect callback to the first movie.
Uh-huh. And I thought that was so, it was very great, very reminiscent. My one time I did jump was when Ghostface came out of the corner the second time.
Yeah.
They basically did a fake out where they were panning to the left, and then you saw back, and then you saw something fell. I think it was like a broom or something fell on the right hand side, and then Ghostface came from the left.
Yeah.
So
really cool.
I thought that was really, really good, and it did get me. That was the one jump scare that got me, though. That other than that, all the rest of them were not too great.
So before we, I think we also need, because we've talked enough about that first scene.
Yeah.
If we keep talking about the first scene, I'm going to get scared.
Yeah.
And the lights are off in this place. I'm getting scared. Okay. So one thing that we also want to discuss, the legacy characters in this movie that we mentioned in our unspoiler part of this review, they were not safe.
Oh, 100%. They did a 100% good job of raising the stakes each time, and two legacy characters actually died in this movie.
Yes. Yes.
Dewey went out guns a-blazing.
Yes. Ghostface when whoever it was, I think it was the I don't know which version it was. I do know, but I don't want to say it just yet.
Yeah.
But whoever was under that Ghostface mask when he killed Dewey and said it's an honor, that was.
It genuinely felt like an honor.
Yes, it did. And I do have to say, the death of Dewey hit really well.
Yeah.
But I feel like it should have hit harder.
For our wooden face actress?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would have hit so much harder.
Courtney Cox, when Dewey died, just...
It didn't sit.
Like,
it didn't sit.
You saw like the initial impact, but she got over it so quickly.
Well, and one thing I didn't
and she her eyes were dry in the hospital scene following it. Like literally,
it was
like
not good.
Sidney Prescott came over to Gail, and Sidney basically asked, "Are you okay?" And Courtney was like, "Yeah," but like we were like. Yeah, you look like you just saw someone was like murdered in front of you, but you didn't know who the person was,
and you also didn't care about that.
And
person.
You didn't care.
I have to say I didn't like how they had Dewey in a body bag. I didn't like that.
I actually like that. I
didn't like it.
I like seeing it that way. Because it made him in the world feel not like special.
Right.
But to us, he's special.
Yeah.
So I felt like they gave like the death, like the specialness, and then gave the body bag portion a more non-special, which I kind of like.
Well, one thing, even though I didn't like the body bag, it was a nice moment to where, okay, yes, Dewey has been stabbed many times. He's came back from the dead, blah, blah, blah. But that was a good portion where they basically said, no, Dewey is dead. He is dead.
Yeah.
I just didn't like how they had to put him in a body bag. I
fair.
felt like that could have been a little better.
Okay, but here's the thing that I really, really, really am excited to talk about.
Yeah.
The house reveal.
The house reveal. Oh,
the house reveal.
We didn't realize it until like right when they said it.
They did such a good job of hiding it.
Yes, they did.
And here's the thing. So they do a party again. But here's the thing. They do it as kind of like a rave, like 2021 party rave.
Yeah.
And those kinds have like very dark lights, neon lights.
A lot of music.
So you really can't see like where you're at in all the surrounding area.
It wasn't like the party that they did in 1996 where everybody was basically sitting there watching scary movies. They were still watching scary movies. But everybody else was like partying. They were dancing.
Yeah.
It was like a club in a house.
100%.
But
and
with
they
the
hit it.
drive-in theater in the living room.
Here's the thing too. One of the almost killings, which again, it's the nephew's like almost killing.
Yeah.
Chad Meeks Martin, who's played by Mason Gooding. Another time where he's stabbed like 10, 12 times.
Yeah, he was stabbed a lot.
And he at the end
outside, yeah.
Yeah, and at the end you're like, wait, You survived?
Yeah,
Good for you, bud. Because Jesus, you got stabbed in the leg, you got stabbed in the chest, you got stabbed in the back. Like you like Ghostface literally went up.
He went ham on him.
I was genuinely like, that was a genuine surprise. I was like, would you really survive that? I'm not entirely sure.
Well, what I do have to mention, when we found out it was the house from the first movie, both me and Zach, we literally leaned all the way forward in our seats because we immediately got so excited.
100%.
It was so cool.
It's like the returning of a character whenever you have something that iconic come back to the big screen.
Like Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire?
Yep, just like them. Or like the Millennium Falcon or Han Solo. Like, honestly, anyone coming back after a really long time like that, it's like welcoming back a great friend that you haven't seen in a while.
One thing I would also like to mention is the use of the 1996 Scream.
Yeah.
That was really cool because it literally felt like a sequel to the original Scream. Even though, yes, it did have a nice callback to 2, 3, and 4, this was full on a sequel to the original Scream.
Well, and see, that was actually really nice for me because I've seen all of Scream 1996, but I've only seen part of Scream 2 and then none of the other ones. I haven't seen Scream 3 or 4.
So I have a confession to make. Before we saw this movie, I ordered 2, 3, and 4 on Blu-ray, and I watched them over a day off. I watched 2, 3, and 4, and boy, oh boy, I was screamed out. I was screamed out because 2 is okay, 3's bad.
Gotcha.
3's bad. And 4, it was better than 3, but it still wasn't good.
Gotcha.
But this one was much better than all of them put together. In my opinion, second best Scream.
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't, similar to you, I wouldn't put it above the original Scream.
No.
And because I feel like, again, the original Scream, it actually had some like really genuine horror aspects to it. Yes. I genuinely did not know who the killers were gonna be until the end and the reveal. I thought that was really, really well done. But yeah, I also love the callbacks. Not only they call it stab in this movie, you actually see multiple scenes of the original Scream movie in the movie, and they're all at pivotal points. And there's even one joke at the end of the third act where the niece is actually literally watching what's literally happening. It was
literally a shot for shot.
It was a shot for shot, and she's reacting to it. And then she looks up and Ghostface and she's like, oh fuck. Really well done for that. And even Ghostface was like, what? You're literally in this scene. Why are you not looking at me just yet? I thought it was really funny and really great.
Speaking of the original 1996 Scream, can we talk about Billy Loomis?
Okay, so here's something that I think we may differ on here again. So
which is fine.
So I love what they did with Billy's character.
I did too.
But
there's a but in here.
You could have done so much more with that concept.
Really?
So much more.
See, I didn't want more. I thought there was a perfect amount because I felt like if you added too much of Billy, it wouldn't have been about the main character. It would have been her fighting over Billy, and I didn't want to see that.
Well, and see, that's the thing. I kind of want to see a little bit more of that. I wanted to spend more of a scene with her. So, spoiler. I feel like Billy is the Ben Kenobi here.
He is.
He is the Ben Kenobi for Sam because we do find out that Billy is Sam's father.
He had a brief affair when him and Sydney were, I think they said they were broken up for a little bit during high school.
Yeah,
And he had
an affair.
Fling. He had a brief fling
with.
We can't really say
call it an affair.
Yeah. A brief fling.
A fling with Sam's mother.
Yes. Back when they were in high school.
Yeah, and I thought that device was really well done and really well used. But I just wanted to see more of the like craziness of Billy trying to like really sell the whole, give into your breeding, give into the serial killerness of yourself, and Sam fights it a little bit, and at the end it does have a payoff at the end, like it does.
But I feel like
it could have been more well earned if they spent a little more time together.
So maybe instead of having him being in a reflection, maybe him actually, like from you and me, we're right here,
like a genuine scene.
Yes, because he was, for the most part, he was in a mirror for the most part.
Yeah, and I like that idea that he's all in her head, but I wanted more of like her going crazy a little bit more and then reining it in before that final, like, really going to town on the final.
There was one
killer.
thing I wanted to mention was I kind of felt I wanted him de-aged a little bit because I didn't really want to see him older.
That's fair, because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't make sense that he's older because he died when he was a freaking teenager.
Yeah, so I feel like they probably could have de-aged him a little bit, but you know what? Yeah. I'm not a director.
No, and you know what? Again, we really like the idea that Billy was used and how he was used because, like, you know, you wouldn't really think Billy would have been playing a genuine role in here, but having like one of the OG ghost faces coming in is really nice.
Yeah. Speaking of a ghost face, can we talk about that boyfriend's performance?
Here comes another disagreement. But I will say, I think his performance was. So who we're talking about is the boyfriend in here,
and he was the killer.
And he was one of the killers. He was played by Jack Quaid, who the character was Richie Kirsch. I felt like it was the script. I think the script is what got this actor. And I feel like this actor was okay. I feel like he wasn't bad. But at the same time, the script did not really help in hiding what this character was going to be. And even called it out multiple times in the movie itself, which did not help out. There's even a moment... it's like the second time you meet him after Sam and him head to the hospital to check on Tara. He disappears for a second, and then Sam comes out of the hospital room after talking with Tara. His first words are like, "It's me, it's me, it's me."
Right. So
which I was like, dude, if you as a scriptwriter are trying to do that and try to be, you know, like, oh, it's not going to be the killer, because they were literally having a conversation between Sam and Tara of who the killer could be, and then the next character that shows up that after opening a door and he says, "It's me, it's me, it's me," that's really on the fucking nose.
So I did not like his performance at all. I didn't like how he tried to be this cool boyfriend at the beginning. I felt like he tried, it just didn't work. But at the end, there was a scene where he was either trying to be a Billy Loomis, but he also was trying at the same time trying to play Stu.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that at all.
Was that the closet scene out of here?
Yes, it was the closet scene. I wanted him to choose. Did you want to be a Billy Loomis or did you want to be a Stu?
Yeah.
There was no in between.
So what was that closet scene? Could you go ahead and describe it for our audience that either has seen it or it just doesn't care and wants to hear the spoiler?
So you're going to have to... because my brain is just horrible.
Sure.
The closet scene, yes.
So basically, since there are two killers in this interpretation of Scream, we might as well just say who the other killer is. It's Amber Freeman, who's played by Mickey Madison. Yeah. It's Tara's best friend.
Yes, and she was related to Stu, I think. Was it her niece?
No, she was just a really big fan, and her family owns the Scream house.
Yeah, which was Stu's house.
Oh, you're right. But I think their family just bought it, and then when she found out the legacy of the house, that's when she became a Scream fan.
I don't know why I thought they were related. No, I mean, it would have worked.
It would have worked. So at that point in time, Amber is Ghostface.
Yes.
And she's going through the building. We don't know it's her. We don't know it's her just yet. But it's Richie that is on the phone and talking and is talking to Sydney.
Yeah.
Sydney comes up the stairs and he's talking on the cell phone and he's trying to play with Sydney, and she's shooting every door.
Yeah, that was the closet scene.
And then when Sydney comes to the door where Richie is, Ghostface starts freaking out because he's about to kick down the door. Well, Sydney's about to kick down the door, and then he starts freaking out, and then you can kind of see him putting away the phone when she kicks down the door, and then he tries to play it off of, oh no, that wasn't me, me, and Sydney plays it off as like, yeah, it wasn't, but he just didn't give the deciding of which one he wanted to be, and it was really confusing on that point. And that was the nail in the coffin for me. Like I already was very sure that he was at least one of the killers, but that right there was the nail in the coffin. Like, yeah, he's it.
And that was why I did not like his performance. He didn't know what kind of killer he wanted to be. Did he want to be a Billy Loomis, or did he want to be a Stu? And it literally drove me crazy.
Well, and his official reveal
that turn was ridiculous.
That was very stark, and when he owned up and confessed to being the killer and to owning it, that was it almost did a 180 on his character.
I feel like I don't blame this on the actor per se. And I know you mentioned it was probably a little bit of the screenwriters. Yeah. I just felt like there could have been a little bit more of a seasoned actor.
I agree. But at the same time, you also have to remember Scream is playing on the teenager trope all the time. True. So the only way that you could really do that is if you were using the legacy characters again in order to have one of them take on the role.
All right. Let's see what is next in our spoiler-esque thingy.
We got the requel conversation.
Okay, so I would like to take this.
Absolutely.
I would like to start. So the requel conversation, what a requel is basically it's a sequel, but it's kind of rebooting.
It's a reboot,
but
sequel.
It's a sequel.
Yeah.
So it's still set in the same timeline, per se, but it's a sequel to the original in a reboot fashion.
Yeah.
This movie, I know they called it a requel, but I didn't feel like a requel to me.
See, I think it did fit the requel branding. But there's been a point of contention with a lot of people that have seen this movie. Mm-hmm. There's a scene that brings up requels, and it talks about sequels and remakes and tropes and how fans react to each of the different kinds.
They mentioned the sequel trilogy for Star Wars. I know they mentioned that crapshoot. I have not seen it, but Terminator Dark Fate.
Yeah.
They mentioned the new Halloween. They did mention a few other requels, if you will, but those were the main ones. But this one didn't feel along the lines of we're going to reboot this, but still make it in the same timeline, because this one literally felt like a regular sequel to the original, but still calling back to 2, 3, and 4.
Yes, the reason why I feel it feels more like a requel is because with our requels, you usually have a more different cast, and the legacy characters don't usually play a huge part. They play a supporting part. Okay. And now, while I haven't seen 2, 3, and 4, from what I've heard, the legacy characters usually play a little bit bigger part in 2, 3, and 4.
A much bigger role. Except for 3. I know Sydney is barely even in the 3rd.
Gotcha.
Barely.
But I feel like one of the big things of requels is you focus more on the new cast. And I feel like that's what they did in this one to make it a requel. The specific scene where it's calling all out these things, I know it's been a really mixed bag review of whether people liked it and didn't. I loved it.
It reminded me of basically the conversations me and Zach have about any movie in particular, especially like Spider-Man No Way Home. It's basically, if you are a film fan and you're watching this scene that they're talking about, it's in the Meeks' house, and you're watching, and they hadn't started watching any of them stab movies, but there's a big screen TV, there's DVDs, there's Blu-rays, I think there's a VHS in there too.
Yep.
It's basically it's a movie fan's man cave.
Oh, 100%.
And they're just talking about movies.
Yep.
And that's another thing that I really enjoyed about this movie, Scream. It was a film fan movie.
Yeah, and I really love that one of the best things about Scream is that it takes that movie knowledge of horror films, of all these, of classics, and even just normal films, and they're like, we know all these tropes, we know all these things,
but
so why would we fall to them?
Yeah.
So I always love that like satire that it always brings with it, and it's always gonna come with always commenting on it.
Yes.
So when people say like it came too close to the fourth wall, like they were expecting a wink at some point at the camera. No, I thought it was played really well in universe, in camera.
I did not need a fourth wall break.
It wasn't a total fourth wall break to me. I thought it was well done in the universe and really a great commentary on not only just classic but modern horror as well.
Well, just films in general.
Yeah.
I do have to mention one last thing: the closed door killer scene.
Oh my gosh! So, one really nice.
One nice little ending tidbit.
A nice ending tidbit, but one really nice like tip of the hat to Wes Craven was that they named one of the characters Wes.
Yeah.
They named the nerdy character Wes.
Yeah.
And one of Wes Craven's favorite things to do was do you open a door, you do something inside, and you close the door, and the killer's on the other side. They just appear. Mm-hmm. That is a very Wes Craven trope that he really loved to do and utilized really beautifully.
And they did that.
That was a bit for like 4 minutes.
I think they did it at least 3 or 4 times.
100%. Sure. Literally, he went to the closet to like get.
They went to the fridge.
Oh, yep, and they did a Psycho reference with it too, like because Ghostface was.
Have you ever seen the movie Psycho?
Because Wes was in the shower, and it was making you think that he was gonna come and get Wes, but he actually went and got the sheriff, who was also a legacy character that also died.
So I would also say there were multiple times during that I was thinking, okay, the killer's there in 3, 2, 1. He closed the door. It wasn't there. I'm like, well, I that was something I really.
And they just kept on doing that for like a solid 3-4 minutes, and it was great.
I didn't expect that, but it was a great turn of events. Like I'm like, okay, he's gonna die. He's gonna die. He's gonna die. Door,
and it just made the payoff even better.
Yeah.
Because it ended up being a back shot. Because he basically the whole thing that is driving that scene is not only is when is Ghostface gonna get Wes. Mm-hmm. Wes's mom is literally
trying
dead.
To get to him.
Literally dead.
That was when she died. Yes,
is literally dead in front of the house.
Yes,
and he's making his way down the house, and he keeps opening these doors and shutting these doors, and then he's about to open the front door to see his mom just on the ground bleeding out. Mm-hmm. And then he says no, and that's when Ghostface goes and gets him. It was a really well done scene, really well shot scene as well. Because it's pretty much was all done in I think one take.
I was gonna say they made it seem that it was just in one take, which is extremely hard to do. But I know a lot of directors have been trying to do that with their films a lot lately.
Oh yeah,
which is so hard. But this one was very very well done, and I just have to say again, I would eat this movie.
Oh, 100%.
I would eat this movie.
This movie really genuinely did such a wonderful job of knowing where it came from.
Yeah.
Yet adding something new and something wonderful, technology even. It added so much, like it added like the electronic like security system and in the first scene, which was really nice.
Cell phones were big.
Cell phones were very good. Trackers were really great. Even the whole idea of recording like things beforehand to add to the mystery of who Ghostface was. I thought they could have used that a little bit more because it got me off the scent of Amber for a little bit because Amber was being recorded in the first scene. But as the movie went, it kind of became more and more obvious that Amber was going to be one of the killers. But
well, we've been talking about this. I think this is over, but
yeah.
Do you guys want to hear what's going on next?
Yeah, actually, we can go ahead and bring that up. So our next reviews are going to be our clean plate movies that me and Mitch really, really enjoy. And surprisingly, neither of us have seen.
So we are going to do Casablanca first. That is a movie I have not seen, but
it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yes, we're going to do that first. We're going to hopefully have that for you guys very, very soon. We are also going to review my favorite movie, The Godfather Part 1.
Yeah, and I have somehow never seen the Godfather trilogy.
That's funny, Zach, because now I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse.
Just leave the cannolis. I know all the references, but I don't know the source material, so I'm excited.
For those of you unaware, that was my Marlon Brando impersonation. How'd you think it was, Zach?
I thought it was all right.
Just okay?
It was okay. I would let it cook a little more.
I would rather just feed it to the dogs.
Fine, whatever. But at least I was just trying to let you down easy.
Thanks, man.
But our next theatrical release, I would love to bring up, is actually on your top 10 list.
It is. It is going to be Uncharted. It doesn't come out for another, I think, 2 weeks, so we still got a lot of time. But this is something we really want to review for you guys. There's a few movies that we're gonna see, but we really don't want to review.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anyone goes in to Jackass expecting Citizen Kane or Casablanca or Godfather, fuck you.
Yeah. These are just gonna be our fun movies.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to hear our review of Jackass, please let us know. I would very want to know why you would want to hear that.
I would love talking about my best bits of Jackass.
Jackass Forever.
Jackass Forever, specifically.
But Uncharted is going to be the next theatrical release. There's a few breaks in between. Because after Uncharted, there really isn't anything new until
Cyrano. Which is going to be at the end of February. But it's still going to be a little bit of a break. Like, Uncharted comes out at the beginning of February, and then Cyrano comes out at the end of February.
Well, you know what comes out a week after Cyrano?
What?
The Batman. That's the big one.
We're getting back. We're getting close. We're getting so close.
But we still got a few other things to do. We're going to bring this content to you as quickly as possible, but please be patient with us. We're just two guys with a podcast.
An excellent little podcast. Well,
until that time,
I'm Zach.
I'm Mitch.
And this has been an excellent little podcast.